Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Tuesday. I hope you guys had an awesome weekend. I am back at it with another video, and today we're going to take a sneak peek at this up and coming full moon in the sign of Taurus. If you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, make sure you click that bell button below, subscribe to my channel. This will alert you as to when I have new videos on my YouTube. I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday using tarot, astrology, and the Sabian symbols and trying to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. All right, guys, well, this is going to be quite an electrifying full moon. I've got lots of info for you guys on this. And if you stay tuned until the end of the video, I will take you through the 12 rising signs and we will talk about where this full moon is going to be impacting you in your natal horoscope. But we've got this full moon coming in, obviously November 15th, 2024. So a little less than 2 weeks when we see this full moon. We know that full moons are essentially a time of completion. So there's something that is kind of wrapping up. We may have lots of revelations with this full moon, and there is definitely themes of emotional climactic events that happens with full moons. Now, generally the moon in Taurus, it's in its exaltation. So this is a nice place to have the moon. Taurus is, the fixed earth sign that's associated with Venus. It's all about grounding out, I think, some of these intense energies and putting it into something tangible, finding ways to kind of gain tangible results. And this can also be about bringing values to our physical world. Now, whenever the full moon is in Taurus, we are seeking stability, comfort, and beauty. That is the name of the game. I do think we can find that during this full moon. It might be a little bit rockin' and rollin', but I am actually quite pleased with some of the aspects that I'm seeing given the close proximity of the conjunction to Uranus. Now, if you happen to have any personal placements or planets around 23, 24, 25 degrees of Taurus, this is going to be impacting you the most. So if you have a sun, moon, rising, a node, within these degrees or other planet, you really want to pay attention because this is definitely going to be a little bit more action-packed for you. And obviously this is taking place at 24 degrees. It's exactly at 24 degrees. So we're going to get to read the Sabian symbol for 24. We don't have to round up. But I want to start first with talking to you guys about this degree theory. So 24 always connects and correlates to Pisces. So we're going to see something that's kind of like a Piscean theme mixed in with Taurus. Now, just as like a reminder, Taurus is connected to money, banking, resources, values, pleasure, food, the earth, anything that we collect, consume, what we spend, what we kind of value. These are the themes that kind of come up when we have the moon in Taurus. So a full moon means that there's going to be big events revolving around those things. So whenever we see 12 degrees, it's got this kind of connection to Pisces or like Neptune. So we can see things that disappear, okay, or vanish, or sometimes things that kind of like just dissolve because that's the energy of 12. It can be about things we lose, secrets, mysterious things that become kind of like, finally known. We also deal with fears, phobias, diseases, things revolving around hospitalization, stuff that is invisible or hard to find, medication, pharmacies, chemists, isolated places, outskirts of town, monasteries, religious divine nature, anything to do with relationship to God, hotels, hotel management, things that happen at night or in a dream, or in bed or in a bedroom, errors, oil, gas, gasoline, drugs, drug dealers, photography, things that are false, counterfeit, or forged. Vague, foggy, or obscure, things revolving around research, the ocean, seas, fishermen, to drown or drowning, poison, things that have to do with poisoning someone, godparents, and things that we run away from or that we escape. Okay, so we're going to kind of apply that to Taurus. It's like, are we going to see some banks that are like, we're running dry on funds? Are we going to see some issues revolving around like liquidity? I definitely think that's a possibility. Are we going to be hearing more about outrageous prices for things, or things going, you know, kind of like missing or flying off the shelves? Maybe. And this could also really be kind of talking about where just people are just kind of going kind of crazy. There's a lot of like craziness associated with this full moon because of the 24, because of the close conjunction that it's going to have to a fixed star. So we'll get to that in a second. So let that be known. On the positive though, I think of 24s as like very intuitive. So it might be like we have a dream, we have a hunch about something, there's a feeling, right? And Taurus is very grounded, and we kind of like feel our way into that. So it's very practical when it comes to, you know, maybe making changes to our resources or values or spending habits or consuming habits, that kind of stuff. So when we look at the Sabian symbol for this particular degree, it's exactly at 24. So we get to actually read 24. We don't have to round up to 25. And the Sabian symbol for this is a mounted Indian with scalp locks. Okay, so the keyword is command. The theme is the conqueror. The symbol speaks to the accomplishment and pride and the ability to gain superior position and authority over others. The image of a mountain Indian with scalp locks is an aggressive symbol, and it suggests a primitive need to conquer and rule. The horse, which is alluded but is not specifically mentioned, represents power, the senses, and the lower animal instincts of a man. The scalp locks symbolize thought, mind, imagination, and intelligence. The Indian is depicted in a position of control over himself and others. Interestingly, this image was not designated by Mark Jones as the images that came through as a reverse symbol. From this, it can be implied that this is not an ominous symbol, but rather an indication of earned authority and achievement. In modern times, this symbol could represent a corporate headhunter. At its highest, it represents self-discipline, mastership. The negative is tyranny, ruthless, off with their heads approach to life, an obsession with controlling thoughts and minds of others. All right, so the accent is on conquest and self-mastery, and a chance that things could get aggressive today and heads might roll. Guard against losing your temper and being too controlling, and avoid power struggles. Stepping stones are authority, control, power, dominion, leadership, superiority, command, mastery, skill, achievement, aggression, and head hunting. Well, I just think of like the theme, okay, of like the Indian, or the Indian being on the horse, and I think of like a warrior spirit. That's something that kind of comes up for me. I think about inner strength, readiness, you know, ready for battle, right? Or a challenge, like feeling like we're emotionally being challenged, but we're willing to kind of step up to the plate. And I also feel like this is it's about really highlighting like where we carry on a legacy or some kind of like courage or resilience in regards to a situation in our life. I also think about them talking about the horse, which is implied but not discussed, and like riding on horseback is a symbol of freedom. The ability to like navigate your own environment and like a sense of direction towards your goals, and also your mission seems to be implied with that symbol. Now we could look at the theme of a Native American as a symbol of cultural pride. So it can mean that there is some kind of connection to cultural heritage, honor, a connection to our roots, and showcasing our achievements and status within our specific community. I think about the integration also of like the past and the present, because there is this theme of like kind of bringing a warrior in and like really blending what's happened with the past and then some challenging situation that they have to kind of face. And then it's about kind of integrating tradition with the need for action in order to create change. So that's really like an interesting point that I found. Personal power and authority, that's another one. When you think about, you know, a conqueror, right? This is like an image that's really kind of embodying leadership and authority that comes from, you know, both our personal achievements, but also like courage. And it's indicating that we are dealing with situations where we have to command some kind of like respect. And then obviously the readiness for change, which I would really recommend with this full moon, because it's going to be conjunct Uranus, so it's going to feel like a little bit of a curveball. I could see this as being a theme where, yeah, we're prepared for some kind of battle or some kind of change, but we're ready to kind of meet this situation head on with some type of like wisdom or action plan. So if you guys think about, you know, the full moon, its roots are actually back in the new moon that we had in the spring of this year. So if we were to go back in time, as many of you guys know, new moons plant the seeds for future full moons. So looking at the new moon that we had around May 7th, 2024, you might want to think about what was going on in your life. You might want to think about intentions that you were setting, what you were really focusing on physically or in terms of building, growing, nurturing, right? These are all themes of Taurus. And it looks like we had a new moon right around 18 degrees of Taurus. So this new moon was a nice one. Obviously, we had this massive stellium that was going on in Taurus. The ruler, Venus, was in its domicile, so that was nice. And then we actually saw all of these planets kind of coming into conjunction with one another right as Jupiter was getting ready to leave Taurus and it was going into Gemini. So find the Taurus area of your chart. Basically what this means is over the last 6 months, there's been something that's been kind of like growing and kind of developing up until this moment. And now there is some kind of fulfillment, or I think of especially a full moon in Taurus as like something is now blossoming, something is now blooming, because this is a sign that is associated with Venus. Now, when we think about this new moon in Taurus, just generally, before we get into the aspects, okay, so you're going to hear, well, you know, full moon in Taurus. Generally, this is a pretty nice aspect. We see this, you know, every year in November. The sun is in Scorpio, highlighting some kind of change, transformation. At least here in the northern hemisphere, this is when the seasons are really changing, and we're like in the midst of fall. And we can really see that change, right? Sun in Scorpio is like we see the trees die, we see, you know, the grass die, we see everything kind of change colors and kind of shift. The temperature gets cooler and we don't see as much life. And the new moon in Taurus, the full moon in Taurus is really representing where we're going and like getting our crops, right? It's harvest season. We're harvesting everything, getting everything that we need, getting everything accounted for, stocking everything up for what would be the winter, okay? But we don't really kind of live in those times anymore. But looking at it from that perspective, this is the time that we would be preserving our food. We would be preparing what would be our land or barns or other things, our animals, our livestock for the winter. So we take stock of everything before we get into those kind of even colder months. Obviously in modern day times, we don't do that as much. Like it's not really as much of an emphasis, at least for most of us. But still, this can be a moment in time where we're taking stock in, you know, where do we stand in terms of our resources? You know, how are we feeling looking back at 2024 and what we've been able to accomplish? What we've been able to also like afford. Like Taurus is going to be about, you know, our resources. It's the land we own. It can be about our possessions. It could be about money in our wallet or in our bank account, things revolving around our physical assets. And so this becomes a huge topic whenever we're looking at the axis of Taurus and Scorpio, because this is all about mine. What is mine? My pleasure, my resources, my self-esteem, my security, my food, my money. And then Scorpio highlights the aspect of others, right? The money you share, the money that you inherit, the taxes you pay, the interest rates that you get, you know, the mortgage that you owe, the debt that you accrue, like all of that stuff is very much the Scorpio kind of Taurus axis. So it's showing us that kind of polarity between the two. So even if you're not like an Aries or a Libra rising, right? For you guys, it is very financial. There can be this feeling of still taking stock of what you possess or what you feel like you can hold on to in that area of your chart, okay? Now, themes, I think, are also going to be stability versus change, because, you know, Taurus is the cow in the field, right? It's ruled by Venus, so it needs stability, and there is this feeling with the moon in Taurus that we need emotional stability. And it may be clashing with transformative energies because of the sun in Scorpio. So there is this kind of like delicate balance that we need to find between holding on to what's secure and embracing what's necessary for change. Now, I'll get into the aspects in a minute, but I will really double down on that because, you know, the 14th, 15th, 16th, we don't just see the moon approaching Uranus, which can feel a little emotionally destabilizing or kind of electric, but we also see the sun moving through the sign of Scorpio, moving into an opposition with Uranus. Now, the opposition won't actually take place until the 16th of November, but this will be a full moon that you're probably going to feel the 14th, 15th, 16th, Also due to that opposition with the Sun Uranus, where it's like an anything goes, there's shocks, there's surprises, there's a plot twist, something kind of comes out of left field that we don't see. So I will tell you guys that this is going to be about embracing change, even if it kind of makes us a little anxious or like emotionally, that is a little challenging, or it maybe disrupts or makes a change in our home or our living situation. Maybe it gets us out of our comfort zone, right? That's usually what Moon Uranus kind of does. If you're somebody who has that conjunction natally, you know that this is about you always kind of emotionally being tapped in. Some of you guys might feel like you're always on edge, or, always on caffeine or some kind of stimulant, and like your intuition is just really strong and you're always kind of responding, to what's kind of going on in your atmosphere. For people who are undergoing a Moon Uranus transit, lots of unexpected changes and twists and turns, right? With women, with your home, with your emotions. It can also be revolving around your intuition. This can be a transit that wakes your intuition up. So if you have this aspect natally, you already know what I'm talking about, but that's what's beautiful about looking at transits, is that you may not have an aspect, but you can kind of experience that particular aspect for any given short period of time and see what it would be like to be under that particular transit. Just reflecting back on I have a moon in Aries. I had Uranus conjunct my moon 7-8 years ago. That was definitely a time where I feel like there was a major uptick in some kind of like emotional breakthrough for me personally. It was like a time where I was kind of saying to myself, okay, I'm ready to, break out of some of these emotional habits or patterns, or maybe I'm open to, developing my intuition more. Maybe I'm open to moving. So I really attribute a lot of that to the Moon Uranus transit. Obviously, Uranus is not quite comfortable in the sign of Taurus because there is a lot of resistance to change being in a fixed sign. So it's almost like I see Uranus and Taurus as kind of like this immovable stone, and there will be a lot of force behind the stone at certain points. Maybe we see oppositions or squares to Uranus, and it really kind of pushes the change along. Otherwise, it's heavy and it's really difficult to kind of see some of those like dramatic shifts and changes. This full moon is almost like putting a stick of dynamite by, this rock, and then all of a sudden it's able to blast through something. And it, for some people, can mean that we're finally kind of like overcoming some of our emotional, hurdles, or maybe we're finally moving, or maybe we're finally making changes financially, or we have a significant breakthrough when it comes to our resources, or even issues revolving around self-esteem. So there's a lot of support actually with this moon if you are finally wanting to have a breakthrough. Now, obviously, we can't talk about Taurus without talking about value and worth. And I feel like with this moon, what might come up for a lot of us is like really focusing on what we truly value. And this could be materially, this could be spiritually, and it might be a time where we're reassessing financial stability, investments, or personal values. But by the same token, because it's conjunct Uranus, there's this feeling that's just like, that is not something that I want to do anymore, or I'm going to flip the script. Or if you're wanting to have some major life-changing kind of like financial situations, or like I said, breakthroughs, this is definitely a time where you may see some of that materialize. And ultimately, the lesson of a full moon is completion, right? And with the conjunction to Uranus, it means that we are emotionally detaching, freeing ourselves, setting ourselves free in a way where we're not as attached or fixated on any particular outcome, right? We're not letting like money be something that is going to dictate or determine our value, our success, how we feel. But by the same token, there can also be themes for some of us that some of what's going on in the world, some of the emotional kind of disturbances, right? Moon Uranus does impact us, and it does make us feel anxious about where we live, where we have our assets, what bank we're banking with, what we have in our kitchen cabinets or in our kind of storage. It can bring some of that stuff up for us as well. Now, Taurus does have this connection to comfort, and the sun in Scorpio is about sensuality. So there's going to be an emphasis on enjoying the senses with this full moon, seeking comfort and possibly indulging in pleasures, and also like bringing opportunity for us to ground out these energies, which I'm going to keep encouraging you guys to ground. Putting your feet in the grass, doing some gardening, doing some cooking, working with your hands on something, taking care of plants, hanging out, with your pets and your animals, anything that's going to be earthly, like think crystals, think grounding mats, think yoga, that is going to help you guys kind of beat some of the energies that may feel very kind of like electrifying, right? But I also feel like this is about finding simple ways in the midst of what can seem like a very trying week or so to just kind of like get back to normal and feel like we have some sense of structure and something that's going to be keeping us grounded. Nature and the earth is very strongly tied to Taurus. So any connection that you can get to the earth is really positive throughout this particular full moon. And it can be not only very grounding, but I think it could be very enriching. So I think of Taurus's association with Venus, and this could be like painting, this could be drawing, anything in regards to the arts, it could be sculpting, that kind of stuff you could do as well. And it could be really beautiful, especially under a full moon in Taurus. Now, truth be told, like I said, you know, this full moon is likely collectively going to be bringing some sudden disruptions. Uranus deals with technology, it deals with electricity. It also deals with the earth in Taurus. So, you know, it can mean, because of what's going on with us emotionally, the moon, there is some disturbances in the force or in the field, right? And it can be impacting all of us in a very big way, to a point where it's also kind of potentially impacting the frequency of the earth, because we're all kind of on this really high emotional kind of bender. So I'm anticipating we're going to see a lot go on with the Schumann resonance. I do think that we could possibly see some action revolving around, you know, I mean, I think of Uranus, it could be, you know, earthquake related, storm related. It could be things revolving around kind of shifts going on with land, earthquakes, stuff like that. And potentially something that's involving water, okay? So we've heard a lot of this because, well, eclipses in Pisces, we've seen some squares to Pisces, right? And now Saturn at the time of this full moon is direct. So 24 is connected to the oceans. And so I think about how water, flooding, rivers, rain, all of these things can actually dissolve and create issues physically with land, right? Uranus and Taurus. Or how it can create some unexpected sudden disruptions or disasters that could be happening, and our ability to connect, right? Uranus and Taurus. So I can't exactly tell you guys where this is going to happen. We'd have to kind of look at it over like a chart and see what parts of the world are being impacted. But that's not really unusual given what's happened in recent weeks. We've seen stuff all over the place. It looks like one of the newest kind of disaster areas has actually been Spain, where there has been crazy flooding that's been going on there. If you guys have not been seeing that, some of like the independent kind of news media online, it's just absolutely like insane. So I know that we're probably going to see something similar to this. I think a big theme of this is going to be how leaders, or how you know, political people, or you know, anybody who's in politics or even the government are stepping in and getting involved. Okay, this is something you're going to hear, and I attribute a lot of this to Venus being in Capricorn. So it's in a sign that's associated with the government. It's with leadership. It's with people who are presidents or prime leaders, or anything revolving around somebody who's kind of like in charge. And Venus happens to be out of 4. So it's in the degree that deals with homes, homeland security, things revolving also around government support for those who are in need and who may now suddenly be homeless, or like they have nowhere to go, or they have no resources, right? So this is the kind of stuff that we're probably going to be hearing more about. In terms of like, you know, this full moon, I would just say expect the unexpected, especially in areas relating to personal values, finances, and possibly even relationships, as Taurus is a sign that's ruled by Venus, and Venus governs over relationships. Now, in the fields of like career and finance, I would say, you know, maybe if you happen to have this full moon in your 2nd or your 8th house, maybe if you have this full moon in your 10th house, this could be much more of like a career or financial kind of full moon for you. You might see a sudden job change. There could be financial gain or financial loss. We could see also innovations in professional life that require us to adapt very quickly, right? Remember, Uranus is like being able to pivot, kind of think on our feet. Now, those of you guys who are having this full moon, maybe in like your 7th, maybe your 5th, maybe your 8th houses, this is going to be more relationship oriented. So you're going to kind of hear that, you know, for a full moon taking place in these areas, Relationships and partnerships, they can undergo changes. They could possibly lead to deeper commitments. But for some of you guys who feel like you've been on the rocks a little bit or things have been a little challenging, it can potentially mean that there are sudden changes in relationships and it can feel like a make or a break kind of moment. And then obviously those of you guys who are having the full moon, maybe in your first, your 12th, maybe even your 6th house, this can be a full moon that can be about personal growth. So it can be about really, focusing on whatever comes up with the full moon and some kind of profound personal experience. Maybe it's a transformation, maybe it's an awakening, maybe it's something to deal with your health or your habits, and it will kind of push you to redefine who you are and what it is that you're believing in. Now here's for the challenging side of this full moon. And I, truth be told, I haven't had a lot of time to watch YouTube recently. So, and I haven't really seen anybody talk about this yet, but I'm sure we will see other astrologers kind of discuss this because it is, I think, pretty significant given Uranus's placement in the full moon. But this is going to be conjunct Algol. Okay. So Algol is around 26 degrees of Taurus. So, we've got Uranus retrograde, so there is this reevaluation and something kind of stirring, revolving around, kind of breaking free at 25, and then we've got the full moon at 24. So it's within about 2 degrees and change of Algol at 26. And as many of you guys are aware, in recent years, there's been a lot of action there, okay? Like we have had, in this year, we had a Mars-Uranus conjunction, which was right around that degree. We have recently had the North Node in Taurus, which is around that degree. We had a Mars-Uranus conjunction that happened a few summers ago. Not as close, it was around 18 or 19 degrees, but still, there's been a lot of stuff there, okay? And Algol is one of the more, I think, difficult, kind of darker, challenging fixed stars that we deal with. It's known as the demon star. Sometimes people consider it like the Medusa star. It blinks, right? So you see it kind of blink in the sky. It'll kind of also change colors sometimes. And this particular star has a very kind of like fearsome reputation in astrology. So it's traditionally associated with like anything that's malevolent, sudden misfortune, violent tendencies. It's also connected to like bodies upon bodies being found, suicide, beheading, right? All of this kind of like heavy stuff. And that's why they call it the Medusa star. It deals with the head, and it's the demon star because it can be about possession. So it can be about like demonic possession if you believe in that. It can also be about, I think, mind manipulation, which I think is so interesting. And I just like that just kind of clicked for me. Having read this particular Sabian symbol to you guys, literally one of the stepping stones was, let's see, where is it? Staying calm, dominion, leadership, command, head hunting, right? But it also talked about tyranny, obsession, off with their heads, controlling thoughts and minds of others. Mind control, okay? Which is it's going to be a bit, I think this is going to be a big theme. And whether this is like mass psychosis of things that people have always heard or they're going to continue to hear, or what's going to be parroted kind of like through, like the major kind of news headlines, or where, people are brainwashed into like thinking a certain thing. Algol has connections and association literally with alcohol, right? The spirit and kind of demon attachments that we have if you're opening yourself up to that stuff. So we do see sometimes alcohol abuse. We can also see themes revolving around abuse of anything that can impact your emotional, psychological well-being, which unfortunately can lead to some people having some major mental health issues and kind of being or experiencing some suicidal tendencies. We have also seen Algol associated most recently with the assassination attempt on President Donald Trump. And that was literally as Mars and Uranus were coming into conjunction, okay? That's what we saw here just a few short months ago. So we've seen in action how this particular star kind of reacts. You guys want to be mindful that, there is a potential with this star that we can also use some of the intensity and the pressure to really facilitate profound transformation and also like really kind of tap into a sense of major shifts and change. And like also there can be lots of creative kind of opportunities that can kind of come through the star as well. I do find that with a full moon in conjunction to Algol, it's going to highlight, emotions coming to a point where it's leading a lot of people to having a very intense emotional experience, which I think we see more so than not with full moons anyway. But this could manifest as like deep emotional, psychological reactions and like having to encounter or deal with our shadow self. I also feel like the conjunction to the star in aspect to Pluto, okay, so it trines, can be about crisis leading to transformation. So it can be signifying that there is a crisis where like old patterns or old situations are reaching a breaking point. This could potentially lead to significant changes in our personal or, kind of like private or even professional life, depending on where this is, which makes it possible for us to have a rebirth. So this can be a crisis that acts as a catalyst for like inner transformation or change. I anticipate that there's going to be some major insights, profound insights, or even like revelations that we have, often related to maybe the darker or more hidden aspect of, the world or even our own psyche. So even though these insights can be unsettling, ultimately they serve to bring, hidden truth to light in regards to, our awareness, like allowing us to be able to say, whoa, this is not emotionally healthy, or this is where I'm resisting, or this is where I need to stop this emotional pattern or like this habit. We are learning to kind of dance with our demons. And in many ways, we can finally start to kind of recognize and realize where there can be some really destructive forces that are going on out in the world that are impacting us in our own life. So I'm hoping that, it's possible for us to kind of emerge from this full moon and kind of come out of this place where there's been darkness or challenge. The full moon will highlight this, and it gives us the opportunity to kind of break free. Otherwise, there's a risk of destructive tendencies, either internally, self-sabotage, or externally, which could materialize as like conflict with other people. Most likely we will see themes out in the world revolving around power and control. And definitely this conjunction brings that into light. It's about power, control, or victimhood. Okay, so that'll come into sharp focus. And it could involve confronting our own or others' manipulative behaviors and facing situations where we feel powerless. Now, obviously, because of the conjunction with this star, there can be themes revolving around karma, okay? Because I have found that Algol is linked to like karmic retribution and significant karmic encounters. So events that happen during this time, they could feel fated or even involve dealing with consequences of past actions, either in this life or symbolically from a past life. Now, physical manifestations, something you want to be mindful of is that I have found that Algol has a direct connection to stress as well as fear. I've also found that people have a tendency to have issues like headaches or tension, particularly if there's anything that's going on with the throat or with the neck. Okay, that's kind of Taurus's realm. So, people yelling, screaming, like losing their head and like losing their voice. Like that's the kind of stuff we see. Or thyroid issues or issues revolving around kind of neck and spine problems. I've seen that kind of flare up whenever we see major aspects with Uranus in this degree. In terms of how to work with this moon, I already told you guys, ground your energy, right? So engage in anything that helps you connect with the earth. It could be as simple as just walking around barefoot, gardening, maybe working with crystals or stones, or maybe you can do something revolving around, potting some plants or doing some cooking. That in itself is very simple, very kind of Taurian-like, and can kind of help you get grounded during some of the more kind of unsettling energies of this full moon. But I also think it can be really beneficial for financial planning, reviewing a financial situation, a budget, or an investment, likely with a new perspective towards long-term stability and the willingness to maybe shake things up a little bit, make some changes, or take some chances. In terms of Taurus, I always think of self-care. So self-care routines that focus on physical comfort. Think of things like massages, baths, gourmet cooking, face masks, mani-pedis, anything like that, where you can really indulge and really kind of feel your way into one of your favorite senses, and also focus on beauty and a little bit of comfort. And art and beauty also. I mean, those two things are very Venusian. So you can engage with or create art that uplifts or brings a sense of beauty and order. And this is also about indulgence and like luxury related items. So I see a lot of people kind of focusing on that. Now we're getting into, you know, mid-November. So for a lot of people, there is definitely a lot of budgeting, spending money, buying things, shopping, you know, and like that is somehow kind of connected to the Taurus full moon. All right, so watch for that unpredictability. I think that sudden changes and sudden awakenings or shifts in our personal values could definitely happen. We could also see it manifest as changes going on with technology or innovation revolving around material, things connected to technology. So like stuff that's being built or developed. And I also feel like this could be breakthroughs. I think of Uranus and Taurus as like cryptocurrency. I think of it also as connections to like IT and anything revolving around like maybe like AI or like tech stocks. I think these are going to be some of like the bigger kind of focuses during this particular full moon. Now, outside of that aspect, we always look at Venus because Venus is the ruler of Taurus. And so Venus is actually making a fair number of aspects during this full moon. You know, maybe I'm biased. I have Venus in Capricorn, so I definitely enjoy this time because I feel like I'm playing with home field advantage here, having my Venus return. But Venus going through Capricorn, it's in a Saturn sign, okay? So it's going to be in a sign that's traditionally associated with Saturn, which is, you know, connected to Capricorn, and this is like another earth sign. So it is stable, committed, mature. Yes, Venus in Capricorn it's a little frosty. But when we look at Venus's aspects, okay, the strongest aspect that she's actually making is an inconjunct or a quincunx to Mars. So there's something that's not reconciling, revolving around, you know, Venus in Capricorn, a sign that is associated with elders, the old way of doing things, the old system, tradition, things that revolve around kind of like being more conservative or kind of committed. And with Mars and Venus in a quincunx, it means that the North and the South Node ruler, so the direction of where we're going with our destiny, and the South Node, what we're releasing, reflecting on, what we're being reminded of, are not seeing eye to eye. So it almost to me seems like November 15th is a turning point with that aspect. That's like, okay, are we going to fall back into the old patterns, or are we going to be kind of like, you know, striving to let something new kind of break through? And Mars in Leo is about new creative projects, new hobbies, new romantic partners. It's going to be about new action that's more heart-centered, new leadership, right? And so Mars is inherently masculine, and it's in a masculine sign. It's in a fire sign. Venus is feminine. She is connected to the goddess, and she is in a feminine sign. So it's interesting that this in itself could actually be talking about, wow, big kind of headlines, or, you know, big, shocking, surprising turn of events revolving around a woman versus a man, right? So it can be very kind of connected to the United States, you know, the election. As I'm filming this, by the way, I am filming this on the 4th of November. So I am putting this out way before I even know who wins. I don't even know if we're going to know who's won by this time. We'll see. But I think that in itself is very interesting because there is this sense that we're kind of at a turning point. Now, the other aspect that Venus is making is she is squaring the North and the South Node. She's squaring the South Node in Libra, the North Node in Aries, the nodes of fate. And truth be told, having a full moon ruled by Venus, which is squaring the nodes, means that something big is happening. Something big is happening that is going to have a huge impact on the banking and the financial system. And that, you know, big boom of the full moon in Taurus is going to be brought on by a significant change in status by someone. Okay, so it could mean that, you know, the outcome of the election is impacting the market in a very big way. I don't think it's smart to make predictions with Uranus. I feel like a lot of astrologers would agree with that statement because Uranus is a bit of like a trickster. You know, you have this moment where all of a sudden you think it's going to do one thing and then it does the other. So it's not the easiest planet to bet on. But one thing is for sure, whatever changes that are happening in government, okay, Capricorn, and, you know, whatever shifts are kind of happening here is going to have a huge impact in the market.
Part of me feels like the moon conjunct Uranus could mean that it's just all-time greed. We see something massively jump up and a lot of people are like really excited about, you know, the turnout of what's going on with the market and everybody's really optimistic and it's just like sky high. Or that crypto is sky high, right? Or something revolving around an AI stock. And that could be somehow connected to some of the policies revolving around whoever the future candidate is going to be. Or if we are thinking more in the right now, it's, you know, November 15th at this point, we're looking at another like almost 2 months before there's the inauguration. This could mean that we have somebody who is, you know, in a position of power that is doing things that has a huge influence on the market, and it could be breaking it down, dissolving it, making it harder, making it worse, making things fall apart, making stuff shake up. And Venus could be a woman. And so, you know, part of me looks at this and I'm like, man, you know, if there is some kind of chaos going on and we don't know, you know, potentially come mid-November, is there a scenario where, you know, Kamala Harris is either said to be, you know, the future president, or, you know, Trump wins and she's put in the position of president temporarily over Biden until we get to the inauguration, and the impact that that has on big business companies, you know, and some of the policies and things or the executive orders that may potentially go through before we switch to another administration. I think either one of those scenarios is very possible, and like it's stupid not to consider either one of those to potentially happen. The other aspect that Venus is then making, which by the way, the North and the South node, like I said, it's not just about what's happening in the world. Like in your own life with Venus square the North and the South node, it could mean that financial situations are at a turning point. It could mean that relationships are at a turning point. Planets square the nodes in my mind are like, we get a free pass. That's a time where the universe is like, okay, we're gonna let you see what you're gonna do. We're gonna give you the opportunity to choose. You choose. If Venus is about relationships, values, money, you know, socializing, possessions, all of that stuff, and it's in the sign of Capricorn, it's basically saying now is the time to make some really long-term decisions revolving around what do you love? What do you value? How much money do you want to make? What do you want to own? What do you want to possess? What kind of financial power do you want to kind of wield out in the world? And where do your values lie? And how can you be, you know, focusing more on that? The moon in Taurus does have connections and associations with land, right? Building, I think of like builders, I think of developers, I think of architects, I think of construction. I also think about real estate. The moon is connected to real estate. So if Taurus is possession and the moon is homes, this could be real estate industries. And the connection to Venus, and Venus being out of 4, ooh, guys, I've been seeing some stuff that's been coming out in the news this week where like they're projecting just how much more expensive homes may be if inevitably, if we were to have Trump back in office and there was massive deportations, how much that would impact, you know, labor, and that there would then be less people who would be immigrants in the United States that would be labor workers, and there would be potentially either a shortage or we would actually have to pay a living wage to people who do the labor for construction, and like that would make housing prices skyrocket. Ooh, I think Venus at a 4, and then I see the moon Uranus, and I'm like, that's a very decent possibility. I could imagine there are some developers and people who are kind of shaking in their boots, industries that rely on this labor. And I think that there is something to kind of be said about that. That is possible looking at this chart. The other thing that I think about is Venus is sextile to Saturn. It's about 8 degrees, but hey, you know, it's within 10, so we're going to count it. Venus in aspect to its dispositor, Saturn, is actually a nice aspect. So this is saying that, you know, whatever is being kind of committed to, focused on, whatever is bringing in some support, some resources, it is going to help stabilize. It's going to be secured. It's going to make sure that it allows us to continue to flourish or continue to grow. Now, this could mean that there is some kind of money that's being pumped into companies. We might see certain stocks that we know, if we know who the president to be elected is, that some businesses may just like their value may go up exponentially, you know, or it might crumble and break down because we know which administration is potentially, Saturn is kind of the administration or like the government is supporting certain businesses or certain types of industries. And I do feel like it's very much connected to this. Just looking at, what each individual administration, is kind of like running on, or like, I guess each party is running on. There is a very, very stark difference in terms of how they're planning to come in and kind of restructure America. And so I could see this being positive in some ways, because some industries which, maybe, have been lacking the support of leadership, now suddenly have the opportunity to kind of strengthen. And then I also see this as like some, especially like Moon Uranus, could be tech related things. It could be things that are less blue collar, things that are going to be less kind of connected to what's physically going to be helping infrastructure, or, kind of like be bringing jobs back, may potentially kind of crumble. Especially I think about like international businesses and stuff. And if it were to be a potential kind of, presidency under Trump, that's going to have some kind of effect. A lot of us have heard, Trump's agenda basically is, hey, we're going to just put a lot of tariffs on things. We're going to bring jobs back to Americans. This is what we're going to do. And in reality, it sounds good. But the reality of that is that it does make some goods and services much more expensive. And if we have a lot of jobs and a lot of things that have been outsourced to other countries, there will be a major kind of like reshuffling going on, revolving around certain businesses in the United States who I think are doing business overseas. So that'll definitely be a big turning point. Now, we do have the full moon, okay, at 24 degrees. It trines Pluto, and like Pluto is in the final moments. It is just days away from Pluto going into Aquarius. And so to see the moon, go through Taurus, have this full moon, trine Pluto, it's empowering. It's saying because of this change and transformation with leadership, responsibility, long-term goals, authority figures, career-related stuff, that has a huge sudden shift in impact on work, on jobs, on resources. So some people may suddenly be like, wow, this is going to make it so much better, to work where I'm working, or live where I'm living, or I'm going to be able to afford more, or, oh my God, am I one of the people on the chopping block? Are things actually dramatically shifting very quickly in terms of the economics? And like, am I in a position where I may not necessarily have stability? So that can happen for some people, although generally the moon trine Pluto is very emotionally driven, committed, open to change. Like, it's inspired by some of this change, and it can bring some positive aspects. And then this moon is also in a sextile to Neptune. So we've talked about how Saturn and Neptune and Pisces are kind of like, okay, we have to make our dreams a reality. Saturn is now direct. So, there is like a sense of having more stability in the Pisces area of our chart. And also coming to terms with what needs to end, what we need to wrap up, what needs to go. So with the moon and Uranus sextile Uranus, if you can dream it, you can build it, right? You guys remember the reference I made probably like a year ago to what dreams may come. I said, if you can build it, they will come. Well, in this case, we have to visualize, right? This is what the future should look like, or this is what, what we need to kind of be working on or envisioning together. And how that can suddenly kind of inspire people emotionally to make big sweeping change with their relationship to the planet, Taurus, with their relationship to money, to food. I am so excited to see some of these sextiles to Saturn and Neptune. Personally, this is like not my astrologer hat talking, but seeing all this stuff where you're like hearing RFK Jr. come out and say like, yeah, like if we end up being involved in like the next administration, we want to get fluoride out of the water in all 50 states. This is the sudden awareness of the impact of what we're consuming, Taurus, that's coming from water, Neptune, and the effects of how that impacts us mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, right? We know that that stuff just totally messes with your pineal gland. It disconnects our ability to be able to kind of have connections to our higher self. It squashes our intuition. I mean, like all this stuff is starting to come out. So there is this sudden awareness. But it can also be about pharmaceuticals. It can be about, food. It could be also about the impacts of what's going on with changes in our atmosphere and our environment, and like how that's having a really heavy impact on our bodies, right? On our food. So a lot of these things are kind of intertwined here that
is still mirroring back to some of the changes of what's going on with the future of leadership, then the impact that that might have on systems that are connected to Pisces, hospitals, right? Pharmaceuticals, mental, emotional health facilities, things revolving around rehab centers, prisons, as well as Taurus things, food, farming, right? That kind of stuff. Taurus is the farmer. That's one of the archetypes of Taurus. But I could see this being like innovations and things that are going on in regards to these industries, and that, you know, it is going to be a big make or break kind of turning point for some of these people, depending on ultimately who is the president. So I think that that's a really, really big deal. You're seeing a lot of people that are betting on either side right now, which is really kind of interesting to watch. All right, so in the midst of this, in terms of other aspects not involving Venus or the moon, the sun is in a trine with Neptune. So we're feeling maybe like tapped in, more emotionally connected, more sympathetic, sensitive, emotionally kind of aligned. Our intuition is kind of in flow. And me personally, like Sun in Scorpio, trine Neptune, you know, in Pisces, is like, oh, okay, there's a change coming, you know, like we can rest, like, you know, change is on the horizon, but like this is a good thing. So I don't see it being kind of scary. I do feel like it can be very inspirational, and for a lot of people, very, very, very visual. There can be a sense of just having visions and feelings about the future. Now we have also got Mercury. So Mercury's in Sag. It's going to be there for a while because it's going to go retrograde. And Mercury is just coming out of the square with Saturn, but throughout the Mercury retrograde, it's going to hit this several times. And so this could mean that communications, Mercury and Sag, with teachers, international communication, international relations, international business, shipping, importing and exporting, square Saturn, you know, there could be some challenges, setbacks, or delays with some of these things. It could be difficult to, you know, travel. We could have some delays due to weather. There could be some setbacks that are kind of coming up revolving around business negotiations and communications. Quite literally, Mercury in Sagittarius could be about international agreements, business agreements, treaty agreements, you know, things like that. And with Mercury coming into shadow, squaring Saturn is like, oh, there's a lot of things that are about to be up for reevaluation. So I think that that is the kind of the preview of what we will be dealing with throughout the entire Mercury retrograde. Now, on the flip side, we also see Mercury in opposition to Jupiter. So first it comes into a square with Saturn where there's a delay, then it's opposing Jupiter. And you'll see this play out for a couple days. And then when Mercury retrogrades, it'll make the aspect several times. Obviously, Mercury and Jupiter are in each other's signs. So there's mutual reception, but they're both in their fall. So I personally, and I have not heard anybody else say this, but I personally don't see this as a good thing. I feel like both planets in their fall, even with mutual reception, they're not quite speaking the same language, and they're probably a little too overly optimistic or a little too overly eager, or, you know, maybe counting their chickens before they hatch. And we know that Mercury in opposition to Jupiter just in general is like, it can be news that's just too good to be true. It's too big to believe. It's incomprehensible, you know, or it's hard to understand, or maybe even translate or comprehend. There can be some cultural or language barriers that can kind of be there, or things that are being kind of falsely represented or distorted, right? You know, big words, big ideas, but not kind of focused on the detail. And so both of these planets are opposing each other, making Saturn the focal point. So, you know, Saturn is still a stinker. It is still, you know, bringing up the fact that, hey, we need to be critical. We need to be looking behind the curtain. We need to be asking questions. We need to be aware of like what's going on that we're not seeing. We need to be sober and aware and, you know, looking out for sabotage or self-sabotage or self-undoing. And so that will also play out several times throughout the retrograde. And as we're approaching December, you know, we're coming in for the second Jupiter-Saturn square. So this Mercury retrograde, end of November through December, is like almost perpetuating that square and getting us ready for the end of December when it finally hits. To me, this kind of feels like there is no good way to deliver this news, right? Like Mercury opposed Jupiter is like, it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine, everything's great. And then we see the squares to Saturn and we're like, actually, it's not great. We didn't get the paperwork signed, or there is going to be a delay, or, you know, now we are kind of hitting a block.
And we were told all along that everything was fine, not to worry. And so there can be this sense, I think, with this full moon that's like people going, wait a second, I thought you said that we were good, or I thought you were gonna make the investment, pay me back. I thought you had the resources, the funds. And people are gonna go, yeah, sorry, I thought wrong, or I'm not ready, or I changed my mind, or I need a little bit more time. So be very, very careful, right, with agreements, business, travel, investments, that kind of stuff. People might be kind of, putting a bit of a hold on their travel plans. Mercury and Jupiter are much about travel, until they're waiting to see kind of how things play out, or maybe they're waiting, to make a decision about where they're potentially relocating. Gemini is about movement. Sagittarius is about going further away. I think Saturn and Neptune and Pisces next year, the close conjunction in some of the retrogrades, we are going to see a lot of people start moving internationally. And I'm not just saying that from the perspective of America. I think you're going to see some people just globally that are going to start going, I need to move to a country or to a place that is going to align with my values, that's going to align with my vision. We are about to see a major turning point, and I think everybody's got their eyes on the United States right now, watching to see what's happening with America, to see if this is going to be a country that is going to fall like so many others have fallen to this global regime takeover. I think that the positive is that as I look at this full moon, yes, we're going to see, how this might potentially affect the markets, and that might have some like world kind of ripple event effect. But I do think that this is really setting us up in the long term to be like, you know what, change is good. We need change. It's about time to kind of disrupt the old ways and the old systems. We need to kind of emotionally get right with the fact that, change is inevitable. And I'm going to tell you guys right now that with the Mercury-Jupiter opposition, people are going to have a lot of opinions. People are going to be very vocal about their opinions, and they're going to be really high up on their soapbox. Square Saturn, nobody knows what the hell they're talking about. We don't really have the information yet. Mercury's in shadow. I will believe everything when I see it. When this stuff has calmed down as we're getting closer to December, it's going to be really hard to differentiate fact from fiction. The other thing that I want you guys to think about is that, we're also going to be seeing now Mars and the North Node are coming into a trine, okay? So Mars in Leo, where there is kind of more swag, creativity, passion, action, and feeling more confident and I think assured in our actions. That trine to the North Node is like chef's kiss. It basically means that North Node in Aries is saying, okay, we have to initiate something new. We have to be more independent. We have to be more self-sufficient. I've said to you guys all year that the North Node in Aries is a prerequisite for the Saturn, Neptune, and Aries transit in 2025 and 2026, which quite literally means nobody is going to come to save you but yourself. Nobody is going to come to save you but yourself. So right now, before we kind of get into the final moments in January of the North Node in Aries, we have a pretty long month where Mars is trying the North Node. Action, desire, passion, creativity, self-expression, leadership, flowing harmoniously with the North Node in Aries. And it's basically saying like, don't just talk the talk, walk the walk, like be a leader, like take action, like inspire other people, be creative, be bold. And that's going to help get you on the path of where ultimately we're going to go one way or another. This will be like this for a month. Yes, Mars is still slightly in an opposition to Pluto, but like actually it's over. So it's going to be easing up by the time we're getting into the full moon. It's technically there by a couple degrees, but I think that we're going to be feeling more of the impacts of Mars in opposition to Pluto when it's retrograde and Pluto is in Aquarius and it's in a different sign. But still, there is that tension that is in the sky of, old ways, old control, old power, old kind of crisis, blockages, power struggles, versus like, what the heart wants and where we're getting creative and we're breaking free from that feeling of kind of like being suppressed from Pluto for like so many years. And then we see Jupiter. Okay, so Jupiter is, Jupiter is in a sextile to Chiron. So we're reflecting Jupiter retrograde on our beliefs, how we communicate, what we're learning, what we've said. Some people might be walking things they've said back with this aspect. And the sextile to Chiron is like, taking or reflecting on things that we have said that have hurt other people, things that have hurt us. Maybe we are reflecting on what it means to be different, to go our own way. It's been such a cool thing to see Chiron and Aries throughout this transit. I think it's been painful for a lot of people with the North Node there, but I also feel like it's been really cool to see some people who have been very like just hopelessly and gloriously like themselves and like very committed to what they believe in, their values, even if that means that it isolates them from their friends, from their family, from their coworkers, right? Because of their beliefs. And a lot of it with Aries is about their body, right? Or it's about their goals or the way that they express themselves, being an individual outside of like the collective. And now a lot of these people are being vindicated, and it's such a cool thing to see, where it was like several years ago, speaking out about maybe, being against certain medical practices or being for certain political parties or maybe being against, certain kind of like global agendas was like, oh, you're crazy and like you're the oddball. But now we're seeing some of these individuals who have stayed committed to that, even in spite of feeling isolated and separate, kind of Chiron. They're being vindicated, and I think you're going to see a lot of this throughout the Mars retrograde. Mars in Leo, the retrograde is going to be about now, individuals reflecting, and deciding, are they going to change direction, and are they going to kind of join the crowd, or are they going to kind of stick with their guns and like stay committed to their goal or their beliefs. Anyway, so that's kind of coming up with the Jupiter sextile Chiron, where maybe people are more vocal and kind of talking about that stuff. And we are, for the next month or so, going to be feeling now this impending Jupiter square Saturn, which last happened in August. Honestly, the last time we had it was not so positive. We saw a major dip in the markets take place. There was less optimism revolving around what was going on with the future. I think especially when it came to the economy and resources and banking. Jupiter wants to expand. It wants to get bigger. And when it's in Gemini, it can have a lot of like big talk, but has it lacked the foundation to support that? And that is the square to Saturn in Pisces. So this has also been, Saturn in Pisces was retrograde at the time Jupiter was direct, where there was a lack, right? A lack of leadership or a lack of communication. Not politicking, but when this square happened, that was the month that, Kamala Harris was like, hey, we're not making any statements. We're not saying anything. She wasn't talking to the press. Press, media, newspapers, reporters, that's Gemini, right? Hiding, Pisces. Saturn, people who are governing kind of people of authority. So it materialized literally. There were other things that happened. More censorship stuff came up. We heard more stuff revolving around kind of bringing up censorship, what's happened previously and like what's continuing to still happen. So this time around, Jupiter is now retrograde, which means that there is less forward motion or opportunity or ability maybe to get the word out, to post things, to share things, to talk about things. Maybe it's more difficult to find information, to kind of connect with other people. And now the square to Saturn, even though Jupiter is in a superior position, right? Saturn is now awake. Saturn is awake. He's no longer retrograde. So we, I think, are going to see another wave or another flood of issues with censorship, things that can or cannot be said on your computers, online, on apps. I think this is also potentially going to be more about information revolving around apps, phones, cell phones, other things where like, it's kind of pushing the limits of what's legal. Jupiter is about legality, revolving around like, listening to things we're talking about, things we're saying, stuff like that. And there can definitely be less of a voice for people who are condemning or criticizing those who are in charge or leadership. But just generally, it's not a great aspect because it kind of squashes anything revolving around positivity or optimism. It's not exact, it's by about 7 degrees, but it's gonna linger until right around Christmas next month in December. So with that being said, be flexible, okay guys? Because of Uranus's influence, we have to be willing to adapt, be open to those sudden changes as they kind of come about, see them as opportunities to grow rather than to create more disruptions. Definitely consider a financial review. I think many of you guys will have no choice given the conjunction and that it's so tight. And I think this is a good time to reassess your financial strategies and consider innovative ways to manage or increase your income, but be very cautious with impulsive financial decisions. Don't take risks that you are not willing to potentially fork over if they do not go in your favor. Embrace change in relationships because this is a Venus sign. So relationships could be highlighted. Prepare for shifts. This might mean embracing new partners or accepting changes in existing relationships with a much more open mindset. And also start or innovate, personal projects that maybe have been stalled. Uranus's energy has the opportunity to bring breakthroughs for you and in creativity or in how you approach your passions, especially during this full moon. Practice your grounding work. It's definitely going to help you. Consider gardening, doing some yoga, working with crystals, or going for a walk in nature. It'll help you kind of balance out the more turbulent energies connected with Uranus, where we really feel like we need some stability. And above all, practice mindfulness. This can really help integrate the sudden insights or changes that come into your life more smoothly. It can enhance your ability to kind of adapt to what's happening. It can also help you tap into your intuition, because the moon Uranus might mean it's sudden flashes of like emotions or like intuitive hits or things that are going to be showing us where we're going or giving us some kind of direction forward. Now, with that being said, let me give you guys your predictions for the 12 rising signs. Now, for the purpose of this demonstration for you guys, I always use the whole sign chart. So you can listen to your rising sign, your sun sign, and your moon sign. It is a good idea to listen to all three. The ascendant or the rising is going to tell you which part of your life or which house this full moon is taking place in, and it's generally pretty literal. The sun sign might impact something about your career, and the moon sign might be more about what's going on with you emotionally or what's happening within your home or your family. If you're a Placidus user like me, I recommend looking at your chart, figuring out where 24 degrees of Taurus is. You may have to listen to more than one rising sign if you happen to have it in a different house, okay? Also consider where Venus is during this particular full moon, because Venus is pulling in energy, right? Stability from Capricorn. So the house of Capricorn is where Venus is. So there's going to be something sweet, long-term, commitment-oriented, something that's going to be kind of stabilizing, that's going to be helping you when it comes to your full moon in Taurus. All right, so we are going to start with Aries and Aries rising. You guys have this full moon in Taurus. It's happening in your second house, okay? So obviously the second house for you is very much about your money, your values, your finances, your self-worth, anything revolving around that. So definitely with a full moon here conjunct Uranus, there can be some unexpected shifts in income and new ways of valuing yourself as well as your possessions. Now, at the time of the full moon, Venus is the ruler and it's going to be in your 10th. So it does look like there could be some sudden unexpected financial changes coming up relating to your work and your job. Whether this is the relationship you have to another person, somebody at work, it could be that there is some opportunity to quit jobs, to change jobs. Maybe you get a new job offer. Generally, because Venus is a positive planet, it can mean that this is being brought on because of a relationship with a woman at work, or maybe you are starting to work for another company. Maybe it means that there is a change in your status and suddenly you go from being single to being engaged or being married. That's bringing you some kind of security or stability here. All right, the card that you get is the Six of Wands. Okay, positive card. This is about victory. Overcoming, fulfillment, celebration. This is also about something that you're welcoming. So it looks like there's a welcomed financial change coming for you, and it can be something kind of connected to some of your long-term goals, and you're celebrating, oh, I got a raise, or I got a better paying job, or I switched jobs. Like there's something that you're really celebrating and you're kind of happy about getting and being victorious in this financial shift, okay? All right, let me know how it goes, Aries. Come on. Oops, sorry guys. Let's change this again. All right, so let's take this to, looks like it didn't go to whole sign. There we go. All right, so we're gonna go now to Taurus and Taurus rising. What's up, Taurus? This is your full moon. in your sign. So remember, if you have anything 23, 24, 25 degrees of Taurus, this is going to be a big one for you. You guys are having a full moon in your first house, all right? So this is very personal. Obviously, the first house deals with your body, your appearance, your identity. So there can be something big revolving around these topics. Sudden changes in how you present yourself or innovations in self-expression are expected. Think about the intentions you set 6 months ago with the new moon. Now that's becoming kind of fulfilled. So there is some kind of aspect of some personal completion. This is also ruled by Venus, and Venus is in the 9th house. So it can mean that at the time of the full moon, you have a significant shift in your belief system, your belief about yourself. Maybe it means you're traveling, right? There could be an opportunity for you to be traveling, learning, teaching, expanding, and maybe even being somewhere further away. You're involved somehow in traveling or learning. These are all 9th house themes. It can mean that you can be a little emotional. It means you can be a little moody. There can also be some sudden changes kind of going on with your body. So be mindful that, your body can be a little bit more sensitive, especially if you're flying or you're traveling or you're in between time zones. I could definitely see that with this full moon. But this can be a total shift in regards to your personal identity and how people see you. So it's definitely a pretty positive turning point in regards to innovations when it comes to yourself and how you connect with other people. The card that I get is the Ten of Swords. So something to think about with this card coming up, because obviously the Ten of Swords is it's a completion, it's over, this was a difficult period. I see this as for some of you guys being and this is where I've had enough, and emotionally you could kind of be at your wit's end. This is also happening simultaneously with planets opposing the sun in your 7th house, okay? So this could mean that there is a little bit of tension between you and another person. It could be a client, it could be a spouse, it could be a romantic partner. It could also be a family member because the sun is connected to the 4th. And then you've also got Mars in the 4th. So there could be some tension over a home and family situation. And you could be like, I've had enough. And a full moon in your first house, it can be a time where emotions are running high. What I will tell you is that if you've been ready to let go of feelings of, being kind of rejected or being hurt, or if there are things that you've been kind of harboring or kind of carrying, the Ten of Swords tells me that this is a time where you're okay, I'm not carrying it anymore. I'm releasing it and I'm letting go. And I definitely would recommend anything revolving around rituals with clearing out and releasing at the time of this full moon to kind of better navigate that particular card coming up. Let me know how that goes for you guys. All right, we've got Gemini and Gemini rising. You guys are experiencing a full moon in Taurus in your natal 12th house. Obviously, the 12th house is a part of the sky that is very private. This is about your subconscious in the 12th house. It's about solitude, spiritual awakenings, sudden spiritual insights, hidden talents that can emerge, or unexpected endings that ultimately lead to new beginnings. Sleep disturbances I see here, emotional breakthroughs I see here, feeling kind of squirrely and just wanting to be left alone is generally what you see here as well. This full moon is ruled by Venus, and Venus is in the 8th. Okay, so it tells me that there may be some unexpected fluctuations or changes with joint resources. It might be something coming in regards to a partner's money that you did not see. It may be something coming revolving around a tax matter, an insurance matter, an inheritance matter, something revolving around a debt or something that is owed or something that needs to be paid that you didn't see coming. This is also with the full moon in the 12th house in Taurus is not allowing yourself to get too worked up over money or financial situations or worried about some of that stuff. Just taking a breath, taking a second, thinking about it, and just pacing yourself and remembering that this too shall pass. There can be major breakthroughs also revolving around, emotional healing, intimacy, things of that nature as well. But it does look like with the ruler being in the 8th house and the full moon in the 12th, that there is something that's naturally kind of coming to some completion or an end, and it's about how you are emotionally processing that. The card that I got for you is the Empress. So the Empress can be about women, it could be about mothers, it can be about motherhood, it can be themes revolving around changes that have to do with yourself, okay? But generally, this is a positive card. It's about life. And like, you know, the 8th house can be a house that does deal with pregnancy or growth or some kind of investment. You know, Jupiter's in your 1st house. So for some of you guys, you could be contemplating or considering that or finding that out. You've also got Venus in the 8th house, which can, like I said, be about some kind of merger. It does look like something is kind of completing or dying out and something new is being reborn. Something new is getting ready to come in. And you'll see as we kind of get into next month when we have a full moon in your sign that that's going to also become a little bit more visible. So something is still yet to be kind of revealed that might be happening for you guys closer to about a month from now. Good luck. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. You guys are going to experience a full moon in Taurus in your natal 11th house. All right, Cancer. So obviously full moons impact you as you're ruled by the moon. So every full moon is significant for you. The 11th house is definitely bringing much more emphasis to your friends, your community, your networks, but also your dreams and your aspirations for the future. There can be sudden shifts in social circles, new group involvements, or unexpected achievements of dreams, or maybe even making a new friend. At the time of this full moon, we're going to see the ruler Venus in your 7th house. So this is either putting an emphasis on your relationship with friends, or it could be something like a social gathering, a get-together, a friend setting you up, something like that, and you meet someone. So it's actually particularly sweet for you, Cancer and Cancer risings. It's really good for relationships. It's really good for focusing on your goals when it comes to relationships, or just establishing a much more better kind of connection and like friendship or relationship to some of your, you know, platonic friendships. That can be the case as well. But it's definitely emphasizing people being there for you, supporting you, and also like loving on you a little bit. And some of your goals revolving around relationships becoming more so fulfilled. I love that. That's such a nice aspect for you guys for this full moon. The card that I get is the King of Cups. All right, so ladies and men, watch for a water sign. It could be a Scorpio, Cancer, or a Pisces. This could also be you. So it could be talking about you kind of like really focusing on your long-term emotional goals, your commitments. Obviously, you know, to me, it looks like with the moon conjunct Uranus, there is like some sudden, unexpected party, gathering, you know, event, or some kind of like awareness that you have about your goals in relationships, or a friend, you know, introduces you to someone suddenly and there's just like some like spark or some connection. And so it's about kind of leading with the heart and being more emotionally vulnerable and available as you're potentially kind of coming into what can be new territory with meeting other people. Good luck, Cancer. We've got Leo and Leo rising. You guys are going to experience a full moon in the sign of Taurus in your natal 10th house. All right, Leo. So this is big for your career, okay? The 10th house is your public reputation. It's your professional life. It's, you know, who you are out in the world. So if you happen to have any personal placements around that 23, 24, 25 of Leo, this will be squaring you by sign. So it can definitely feel action-packed, especially having the sun hanging out in Scorpio. There are some squares that might be happening if you're kind of in the 3rd decan of Leo, where it's going to be about how you're responding to some of these changes at work and changes in your home life. Now, a full moon in the 10th house generally is bringing attention to your career and your ambitions. So there can be unexpected career changes, sudden promotions, breakthroughs, and shifts in how people see you publicly. So you're very much going to be in the spotlight, okay? This is something you need to know. You're very much going to be in the spotlight. And, you know, when I think about this, I mean, and I'm not saying you guys are all like this, but like something I probably should have mentioned is that, you know, the full moon is happening exactly, okay? Like it's going to be exact on Trump's midheaven. So I don't know what's happening during that particular period, but I can tell you because it's exact to the degree on his midheaven, it's going to be very big. So he's going to be a major kind of talking point and headline. With the full moon in your 10th house, launching a business, getting a promotion, having an opportunity to, you know, break away from your day job and join something new, or, you know, put something out that's exciting or kind of thrilling, or some change to your status, right? Uranus can be about well, I was single, now I'm engaged, or I was an employee, now I'm a CEO, or I work by myself, now I have a business partner. Something about some shift to your public or professional kind of reputation and how it's kind of connected to other people or to your marketplace. So this is a good time to like launch something, market something, tell somebody, you know, what you've got to offer, and it'll bring in a lot of like attention and recognition for what you're doing. At the time of the full moon, the ruler is Venus. It's in the 6th, which means it's really good for jobs. It's really good for managing work schedule, employees. If you're going to be changing offices, changing schedules, anything like that, it may be something that actually is like a little bit smoother or better for you. And you might feel like just work is going a little bit better, and you're enjoying the schedule or who you're working with or where you're working. And it's just like, yeah, it's just much easier for you to kind of manage. The card that I get is the Queen of Wands. Okay, so this could be you as a Leo, but this could also be a Sag or an Aries. And the Queen of Wands is about being creative, daring, putting something out there, being seen, like, you know, not really caring what other people think, and being about making a splash and like getting some visibility. This can also mean that this is a time where you're feeling a little bit more courageous and you're taking action. And especially if you're like a creative or a performer, or you're somebody who's self-employed or anything like that, this can be a really great card for you because it can indicate that you're having a breakthrough and people are really seeing you for your natural talents. Good luck. We've got Virgo and Virgo rising. You will be experiencing a full moon. Let's take it back here. Sorry. Virgo and Virgo rising, you guys will be experiencing a full moon that's going to be happening in your natal 9th house in a fellow sister earth sign. Okay, so this is going to be trining your sun, moon, or rising if you're like around 24, 25, 26 degrees Virgo placements. So a full moon in the 9th house is going to put an emphasis on transformation revolving around maybe, you know, travel. It could be philosophy. You could be graduating from something. You could be signing on to a particular course. There could be sudden trips. There could also be some sort of like awakening revolving around your belief system. Changes going on with your travel plans is what I'm predicting for Virgo and Virgo risings. Shifts revolving around like teachers, mentorships, things of that nature. The positive is that, you know, for a lot of you guys, it's like if you've planned a trip and it's been planned for a while, this can be like, okay, now I'm finally going. If you have been looking for a school to apply to, or if you've been waiting to get into a program, you can get your answer. The 9th house is a house that is about the bigger purpose of life. So generally when we see aspects kind of happening here, it's generally pretty good. Yes, there can be themes revolving around law and legality that can come up here. There can also be themes that are associated with in-laws with the 9th house. And there can also be themes revolving around just like shifts in regards to how you see the world. And like there can be some sense of like a sudden change in how you are seeing, you know, the world or education. Now the ruler is Venus, and Venus is also in an earth sign. So we've got a lot of earth represented, which is good for Virgos. Venus being in your 5th house means that this is about creativity, love, self-expression, dating. Like, are some of you guys traveling with a romantic partner? Are you traveling to see a romantic partner? Do you go on a trip and do you meet someone? Are you traveling to go and take a workshop or a course because you're wanting to get a certification on a skill that's more creative? Are you focusing on marketing your own business, right? Are you learning how to play an instrument, or how to perform, or how to do something like creative or artistic? These are some of the things that I see kind of coming up for you guys during this full moon. The card that I get is the Page of Wands. So keep your eyes out for Aries, Leos, and Sagittariuses. I think this is about being curious, wanting to go on an adventure, wanting to learn, right? Pages are about youthful, younger energy, and it's about wanting to have an experience and having like this opportunity to learn a new skill. It can also be about younger people. So like children, teaching children, what you're learning about children, children going back to schools, you know, children coming to visit you, traveling with children. This could be also a theme that can kind of come up during this particular full moon. If you don't have kids, I think it's going to be about traveling and learning, or traveling and meeting someone, and potentially having a lot of fun along the way. Okay? Good luck.
We've got Libra and Libra rising. You guys will be experiencing the full moon in Taurus in your natal 8th house. All right, so this is in your 8th house. So for you guys, the 8th house is transformation. It's also revolving around shared resources, deeper psychological kind of processes, sudden financial changes, profound personal transformation, or unexpected events involving shared assets. Okay, so for my Libras, definitely you and Aries, this is a much more financial kind of full moon for you. Unlike Aries, where it's more about their money, for you, this is going to be about other people's money. So the 8th house is like bills that are due, taxes, your partner's income. It can be about inheritances. It can be about savings, investments, loans, mortgages, that kind of stuff. If you've been waiting to wrap up something involving like a tax matter, if you have been trying to finalize getting child support, spousal support, if you have been trying to figure out a situation involving insurance, if you've been waiting for insurance to reimburse you, these are the themes that kind of come up with this. Now, if you're not dealing with any of that stuff, just expect some unexpected themes revolving around somebody else's money. So this could be banking, loans, interest rates, or if you have a spouse, it could be your spouse's money. Now, at the time of this full moon, this is ruled by Venus, and Venus happens to be your chart ruler as well. So Venus being in your 4th house means that love, money, resources, pleasure, and also where you are is connected to home and family. So for a lot of you guys, there is like a sense of being like, okay, we want to like modify our mortgage, or we want to, transform our kitchen or our home, or we want to invest in our home. It might mean that you're looking at loans to buy a home. It might mean that you're paying a lump sum revolving around property or resources. It can also mean that there's money that's coming in from family that can be helping pay like home expenses, or there's a back and forth that you're having with your partner about something going on revolving around something you need to pay for the family. And honestly, Libra, I see it benefiting you. I don't see it being a bad thing. So even if it means that you're borrowing money, or somebody gives you money, or you're inheriting money, like it's going to be something that's going to be positive, and it's going to make your home and your living situation and your emotional like life a lot easier to manage. Okay. So let's see what the cards say for you, Libra. You get the Hangman. And so, you know, for me, when I see this card, it's got me thinking about, on one hand, it's like, well, you don't know what to expect with Uranus. It's just like, you just have to see how things play out, and like whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And you might feel like you're kind of like stuck in this situation, and you're like, well, what's going to happen with my home matter? Or what's going to happen with this financial matter? But I'm looking at Pisces, which has that connection to the Hangman, and it's saying like, you know, it's getting ready to stabilize. There are still some parts and pieces that are being kind of reworked or organized revolving around your home, how you're taking care of it, what work you're putting into it, that kind of stuff, but it's actually getting ready to stabilize. So don't focus on doing anything or reacting or taking action. The action is no action. It's just pausing to reflect and seeing what comes in for you, okay? Good luck, Libra. We've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. You guys are going to be experiencing a full moon in the sign of Taurus in your natal 7th house. So this opposes you, Scorpio. Your 7th house is about relationships, partnerships, your marketplace, your one-on-one relationships that are committed as well. And so a full moon in the 7th house is like a huge turning point in regards to your relationships with other people. If you're single, it can be a time where you meet someone, or there is some dramatic change in regards to your romantic life. Sudden changes or insights in existing relationships can happen, possibly meeting a significant other in an unexpected way, a kind of change that might happen also with a romantic relationship, meeting a new client, putting out some kind of new product and like letting people know something that you're offering. But truth be told, like the 14th, 15th, 16th is going to be an interesting time because the sun is going through your sign and it's opposing your 7th house. So it can feel like for some of you guys, it's some tension, or there's a standoff, or there's something that's like changing or evolving in regards to a relationship, right? Now, at the time of this particular full moon, this is ruled by Venus, and Venus is in the 7th house. So it says for Scorpio and Scorpio risings, on one hand, if you're committed, you're traveling with a partner, maybe you're going on a road trip, you're going and you're doing something where you're focusing on luxury, kind of indulging and spending time together.
It can also mean that there are gifts or exchanges that are going on between you and a partner. And it can be things like travel, gadgets, things involving kind of cars. It can also be like jewelry that you can wear on your wrists or on your fingers. It could be things that are relating to luxury travel. Contracts and negotiations can come up. There can also be themes revolving around documents and things you're having to sign, or maybe like letters or something that you're receiving that you would read. And I do feel like it's shaking things up, but I'm not really worried about it. I feel like the only thing to just kind of consider, Scorpio, is that outside of this full moon, like I said, the sun opposed Uranus is like where now there is some change going on in regards to how you're taking action in your relationships, like the role you're playing. And that could be if you're in a committed relationship, maybe you're taking a much more proactive kind of approach to what you're doing together. If you're single, it might mean that you're really kind of focusing on, taking a much more proactive approach to kind of meeting someone. But there is this kind of whatever is destined to kind of happen, or whatever conversations are destined to kind of come up during this full moon, it's going to be rather significant. I would just say expect the unexpected with other people. It can be good coincidental things that can happen where there's some like serendipity things happening and you meet somebody in a weird way. But there can also be tension and some friction and like relationships that have not been working with this full moon. There can be a sense of finally like having that conversation and talking about and discussing like what's not working. Okay. You guys will have to let me know how that goes. The card that I get is the Ace of Coins, which I feel like is good because if you're in a back and forth with somebody about a financial matter, right? 7th house is like your opponents, and like Taurus can be about money. Like there can be some agreed upon settlement or financial agreement. You're also having Mercury in opposition to Jupiter. So there's definitely a back and forth going on with money for you. But it can also mean that you are able to hold on to something, that something comes in and you're like, this is very valuable. Like I want to hold on to this person. I don't want to let them go. Like this is a good match, So it can be talking about new opportunities, planting seeds for long-term commitment, and feeling very grounded in a relationship. Good luck, Scorpio. Bringing in clients too, more money through your marketplace, more tips that can happen with that card also. All right, we got Sag and Sag rising. You guys are doing a full moon in your natal 6th house. And this is the house that deals with health, wellness, your work, your daily routines, innovations in health practices, sudden change in work environment, duties, things revolving around your pets, okay, your coworkers. So a full moon here, truth be told, you got to watch your health, right? We also really want to pay attention to habits that we really, if they're outdated, if we got to get rid of them, if we got to say goodbye to them and they're time to go, this is a good full moon to do it, to break free from an old habit. This is also going to be about major shifts revolving around like the environment you're working in. So for some of you guys, you might be switching offices, you might be switching jobs. There can be some changes kind of going on with staff. Maybe you're becoming more aware of where you want to break free from your, routine, where you feel like there's too much restriction. And there's also like a sense of wanting to create more time for creativity or for kind of like downtime or just kind of like rest and relaxation, because that's Taurus. So this is a full moon ruled by Venus. Venus is in the 2nd house. It does mean that some change that's going on with your daily routine, your health or your habits, there is like a financial connection. So for example, maybe you're like, okay, I've got some health stuff that's coming up. Now I'm having to invest in my health, or now I'm having to pay a doctor's visit, or now I'm getting a gym membership, right? It could be something like that. But it could also mean that you're recognizing and realizing that the more that you're investing in yourself, you're investing in your health. And that could mean that you're buying healthier, better quality food. That could mean that you've been working out, now you're seeing these results, or you're dieting and like now you feel better and you have better self-esteem. It can mean that you are putting more effort, money, or resources into your space, your office space, or your kind of work environment. And yes, there are changes that are happening with work, but likely you're leveling up. So you're either getting a better job, you're getting better pay, you're gonna get better hours. Whatever is coming from that, it's gonna end up being something that is gonna be better for you in the long term. Card that I get is the Knight of Wands. Okay, so this could be you as a Sag, but it could be a Leo or an Aries as well. I see this as like taking chances, like taking charge, being active. So for a lot of you guys, you might feel like you need to blow off some steam, or that you need a little
day to kind of like play hooky, or you need to be more physically active because there's a lot more going on that's like exciting, you know, around the time of the full moon. But this, I think, is going to be about your physical activity, your health, and your wellness, which is really important considering you have planets in your 6th and your 12th house. Some of you guys can be feeling a little bit more exhausted, a little bit more run down. And I feel like this is a great card to be coming up because it's saying that you're feeling motivated. Maybe the conjunction to Uranus means that you're going to start like a new fitness routine, or you're using a new app, or maybe you're going to be using like something that's going to track like how far you're biking, how far you're walking, like something like that that can be kind of like electronic, Uranus, or something that's going to help you feel like more inspired or incentivized to kind of keep up with your health or your habits. Good luck. We've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You guys are going to experience this full moon in Taurus happening in your natal 5th house, in a fellow sister Earth sign. All right. So a full moon in your 5th house. This is big when it comes to romance. All right. This is a very romantic time for a lot of Capricorn and Capricorn risings. Creativity, children, pregnancy, spontaneous creative breakthroughs, unexpected romantic encounters, or changes that can be happening with your children if you have children, or things involving younger people. Taking chances, risks, and also, you know, having fun is all kind of connected to the 5th house. This is generally a full moon, so I would say for Taurus risings, Capricorn risings, we could see some pregnancies with this full moon that can be unexpected or unusual. I've seen some Capricorn risings with moon Uranus that's like doing in vitro or adoption, or, you know, maybe there is some, you know, like remarrying, and then there's like an adopted kid involved. Some unusual thing involving children is not, you know, not unusual whenever we see that conjunction. But this is a time to wrap up creative projects, a time to really focus on what the heart wants, a time to really be in tune also with, you know, what's going to bring you the most joy, what's going to feel the most authentic, what's going to be the most creative, and also what's going to bring you pleasure or resources. Now, at the time of the full moon, we see Venus in your sign. So there's some kind of mutual reception between Venus in your sign and the 5th house, which could indicate, right? Like, yes, there can be a pregnancy, or there can be a sense of you having a breakthrough with a creative project, or how you express yourself or your own business, something you're designing, something that you're expressing. And it's pretty fortuitous for you because of all of the aspects it's making. It's also sextiling Saturn, right? And Saturn's also sextiling Venus. So this is particularly good actually for Capricorn in this full moon lunation. Performing, being on stage, being seen, that can be a big one too. The card that I get is the 4 of Swords, okay? So for me, I kind of feel like it's saying that, I mean, obviously the 4 of Swords is like rest, recuperation, sitting on it, thinking about it. Like, it might mean that you've been waiting to make an announcement or share something or feel inspired. Maybe you have felt like you're in like a bit of like a lull in that department, and then the full moon comes through, and then maybe it wakes you up, right? It kind of shocks you and brings you back to life, and it can give you the opportunity to feel more so inspired or willing to kind of create again, especially if you've been feeling like you've been kind of stuck or at a low point. And that can be with your relationship to a child, that can be with your love life. I feel like this is a really good full moon for you guys, and like the key is going to be about opening to changing the way that you have fun, the way that you date, the way that you express yourself. It's about kind of innovating and investing more also in that, because it can be something that is not just emotionally fulfilling, but it can be lucrative for some of you guys as well. Good luck. Oops. There we go. All right, so we've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You guys are going to be experiencing this full moon in Taurus in your natal 4th house. All right, so it's in an angular house. So with all of the fixed signs, it can feel a little action-packed, especially if you're like 24, 25, 26 degrees of Aquarius. But honestly, this full moon is conjunct your chart ruler. So we are going to see that there is going to be a theme revolving around sudden shifts emotionally, okay? Sudden shifts with your home, sudden physical changes with your family. Now, your 4th house deals with your home family roots. Yes, you can see sudden spontaneous changes here, changes in domestic life, like moving or family dynamics shifting unexpectedly, or some kind of
opportunity, you know, to finish building something, to rearrange something, to redecorate something. Somebody suddenly comes to stay with you, you know, something like that could happen. And this could also be about like a party at home, a reunion at home, a gathering with family. You could see this here as well. Now, at the time of this full moon, we see the opposition to the sun and then the square to Aquarius. So it means that you're kind of the focal point of like, okay, how are you navigating these changes with what's going on in your professional life out in the world, as well as what's going on at home. And the full moon is bringing your attention to your fourth house, which is your home, your family, maybe one of your parents, your roommates, something like that. And you're gonna feel a little bit pulled in different directions. So just kind of take a breath, you know, just be mindful that you're a little bit more so needed at home, where you need to pay attention to your emotions in a very big way. Now, this is ruled by Venus, and at the time of the full moon, Venus is in your 12th house, which means that there is something revolving around the change with your family unexpectedly, and maybe releasing and letting something go, right? The 12th house is like, okay, you know, we just found out that, you know, we are not going to get the renewal on our lease. Okay, fine. You know, it's a shock. We can't stay here, but, you know, we're going to go and find something new, right? So there can be this aspect with Venus in the 12th that's like, well, I didn't see that coming, or I didn't see my roommate moving out, or I didn't anticipate my sister was going to ask if she can come stay with me, or, you know, I didn't think that, you know, my relative was going to have a health problem. Obviously touch wood, but Venus is in the 12th. So it can mean like there can be situations where you've got relatives or female relatives that are in the hospital, or they're needing treatment, you know, or there could potentially be lots of shakeups in your home that's emotionally disrupting things, or it's disrupting your sleep, or it's kind of keeping you from, you know, being in your bedroom, or there's some kind of change maybe even going on with your bedroom in the 12th house. Personally, I feel like this is the final moment. Like we're going to see even into 2025, you know, Uranus will kind of briefly go into Gemini and then it'll come back. There's been a lot of destabilizing things, shocks, surprises, and things that have kind of come out in your home life. I think you can navigate it. Just be mindful that this is going to be about what you're going to be doing to provide solutions for what's going on at home, because the moon is going to be about helping, fixing, organizing, taking care of things. So you're going to be needed, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on you emotionally, but I think you're going to be able to manage. Just watch what's going on with a female relative or a woman in the family or a roommate, right? Something like that, something of value at home going missing. Watch for something like that. Wow, a card that you get is the Three of Swords. I mean, obviously, full moon in the 4th ends the situations, conjunct Uranus, shocking, ruler in the 12th house. You know, there can be some grief. Like, some of you guys may be having a hard time with the change that comes, which I understand. You know, this is not easy to hear, but I feel like this is about moving away from the past and healing. Like the Three of Swords is about taking the sword out of the heart and being like, okay, I'm going to heal the wound. I'm now like removing it. I'm going to walk away. So if nothing is happening at the time, it's about maybe forgiving. It's about, you know, being able to heal, and it can be about healing ancestral stuff, healing things revolving around relationship with our family or our home. So it looks like it's asking you to do some of that work to make the whole transition that might be kind of coming in the future all that much easier for you. Good luck, Aquarius. Let me know how that goes. I'm curious. And we have Pisces and Pisces rising. You guys are going to be experiencing a full moon in Taurus in your natal 3rd house. Full moon in the 3rd house is generally about communication. It can be about learning your local environment, sudden insights, innovative thinking, or unexpected events in your neighborhood, or involving siblings, aunt, uncles, cousins. Lots of communication, phone calls, emails, meetings that can kind of happen with a full moon here, or needing to go on a quick trip or just running more errands. Now, this is going to be ruled by Venus, and Venus at the time is in the 11th house of friends, allies, and other people. So for Pisces and Pisces rising, I see this as an unexpected phone call, contact, email, invitation, something revolving around a friend. And it's just like, it comes out of the blue. You don't see it coming. You're like, this is weird. Or maybe you're, being invited to something, to join a group, to join an online group, to join an association of some kind, and to be involved in that. And it looks to me like it's a positive thing. Venus is sextiling Saturn in your sign, so it can be about some kind of alignment and support, or, you know, trying to connect with you. We also have, the full moon that is going to be sextiling your sign, Neptune. It's sextiling Pisces in general. So a lot of it's about communicating, speaking out, getting the point across. You know, I love a full moon in the 3rd house to like make a big announcement, launch a podcast, launch a YouTube channel, to complete something that you're writing. Maybe it's a time where, you know, you're able to make some significant announcement of some kind. So consider doing that, especially if you have something where you have an audience and you want to say something to your audience. This would be a good time to, like, you know, put out some shocking and surprising news. And I think that people would respond very well to it. Card that I get is the Six of Swords. Okay, so this is about being in limbo, being in transition. Third house can be moving or movement, right? So that card is indicating for some of you guys, you might be like, you know what, I'm thinking about moving, or I'm thinking about traveling, or I want to do something kind of like in between for a little bit, or you're looking to kind of maybe kill some time before you figure out where you're moving. Because I know some of you guys with the Jupiter-Saturn square are wanting to move, but you don't know where you're going to go yet, or you are going back and forth maybe with a sibling or a neighbor about a moving situation. So this can be really bringing attention to that. And I feel like it might indicate that there's opportunities for you to travel, talk to friends, connect with friends or allies that can help give you some insight about this particular change of mind, change of location, maybe even something that you're learning. Like if you're wanting to learn something, or if you're wanting to kind of get clarification on something, you might be traveling, connecting with a friend, connecting with a group of people to be able to learn more. But Six of Swords is about moving on to smoother water. So if you have felt like it's been difficult in terms of communication or making up your mind recently, it looks like this is going to be tapering off and it's going to get easier for you. Now, with that being said, that was the full moon for you guys in Taurus. So don't forget, it's going to be happening on the 15th of November, 2024 in just a few short weeks. Please make sure you like this video. Give me a thumbs up if you like it. It helps the channel grow. Leave me your comments below and let me know, where is this full moon happening in your chart and what is it aspecting? What do you think? What are you feeling? Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I will see all of you guys here very soon. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week and you guys take care.